Hello there, and welcome to Roundtable, the official podcast of the National Professional Fishing League. My name is Ken Duke, and we are preparing for stop number 4 of the 2026 season at Logan Martin Lake, hosted by the city of Oxford, Alabama. But before we go into that, before we have the interviews and all that good stuff that you come to Roundtable for, I want to tell you about the NPFL Legion. It's our grassroots organization, and for just $29.99 a year, you get access to exclusive content on the Legion website. You get articles, you get videos, you get podcasts and photos, and very soon you're going to get a lot more. You're also going to get a discount on NPFL branded apparel like caps, t-shirts, hoodies, sun shirts, even some baby clothes and other cool stuff. And here's the thing that I hope is going to tip the scales for you, because here's where it makes financial sense for you to go out and join the NPFL Legion. You're going to get a one-time 20% discount off a Tackle Warehouse purchase of $100 or more. Do the math. I did. If you spend $150 or more, you've just paid for your Legion membership. And if you spend a couple $100, as I too often do, you're gonna actually profit from it. You're gonna make more than it cost you to join the Legion. So check out the NPFL Legion. I think you're really gonna like it. As I say, we're at stop 4, Logan Martin Lake in Alabama, hosted by the city of Oxford. Our competition begins Thursday, that's June 25th, and it ends on Saturday, the 27th. We're going to have live coverage of the weigh-in all 3 days with Big Al McCulloch, my all-time favorite guy as a stage announcer. He is the best. Our weigh-in coverage starts at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And the weigh-ins are at Lincoln's Landing in Lincoln, Alabama. So come on out. Our on the water coverage, live on the water coverage, begins on Friday. That's day 2 of the tournament, and it continues on Saturday, day 3, the final day, with Luke Duncan and Fat Cat Newton. Love those guys. They got a sense of humor. They have a personality. They've got great information. And that live on the water coverage starts Friday and Saturday at 8 a.m. and it runs until 1 p.m. Central. So that's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. Before we roll out the guest interviews, I want to talk a little bit about milestones, some of the things that we can expect to happen this week at Logan Martin Lake. If you know me, if you know any of my work, you know that I love the history of our sport. And if you think 5 or 6 years is not a lot of history, you haven't been watching the NPFL very closely. As a league, we are relatively new, but we are mighty. And we are proud of the things we've accomplished and the history we've made in that short period of time. Every single tournament adds to that history. And stop 4 of the 2026 season at Logan Martin Lake is no exception. Here are just a few of the things that I'm going to be watching for this week, and I hope you'll be watching with me. And I'm going to start with a record that, honestly, probably nobody wants to see broken, but I think it's worth a mention because it's interesting. You look back at the history of NPFL tournaments, and you're going to see that Logan Martin, Lake Hartwell, Oklahoma's Lake Eufaula, those lakes are full of 2-pound bass. That's not a bad thing. It means there's going to be a lot of limits caught, a very tight leaderboard. We all enjoy that kind of stuff. This tournament on Logan Martin should go right down to the wire, but it could also produce the smallest average bass in NPFL history. The current record for smallest average bass is 2.0290 pounds. That was at Lake Hartwell in 2024. Last year, in a September tournament on Logan Martin, we came within, get this now, 1/10,000th of a pound of tying that record. I'm hearing that weights are going to be up this week. Some guys are predicting a winning weight of better than 50 pounds, which would be 17, 18 pounds a day. But a record's a record, and I'll be watching. Another milestone, Hunter Bogman, one of my favorite anglers on tour. I bet he's one of yours too if you follow the NPFL. And he's also one of just 5 guys who has fished every season of the NPFL. He needs 10 bass to reach the 400 bass mark. And only 3 other anglers have done that, led by Timmy Reams, another guy who's fished since the very beginning. And Timmy has caught and weighed in 448 bass in his time with the league. Kevin Rogers, Yet another guy who's fished the NPFL since the very beginning. He needs 10 pounds, 9 ounces to crack the 1,000-pound mark. 5 other anglers have already done that, once again led by Timmy Reams. Drew Cook enters the tournament with 42 consecutive limits. That is already a league record by a wide margin, and I expect Drew Cook to add to his record. But did you know that the very last time Drew failed to weigh in a limit was at Logan Martin back in 2024? So you hate to see it really start at that tournament and then end here. I think Drew's going to continue on, reach that 45 mark, head into the next tournament, and blow this thing away. But his 42 consecutive limits, already a league record, way ahead of second place. Coming into this, speaking of consecutive limits and stuff like that, coming into this event, 41 anglers have weighed in a limit every day so far this year. Some of those guys are going to fall by the wayside this week. Not everybody's going to come out of here with a limit. 15 anglers have finished in the money at every NPFL tournament so far this year. That streak is certainly going to end for some of them. One thing I'm always watching for is there's going to be guys who have great finishes, and they are going to rocket up the Work Sharp Angler of the Year leaderboard, and they're going to put themselves in contention for a spot in the 2027 championship. Other guys are going to fall, and they're going to drop out of contention to make the championship. And here's the thing, you may not be this dialed in on it, like, because I study this stuff so much, and I enjoy communicating this and telling everybody what the numbers tell me. But after this event, if you are not in the top 60 of that Work Sharp AOY standings, it is time to swing for the fences, pull out all the stops, go for broke, every sports cliche, because in those final 2 tournaments of the season, you almost certainly need to win one of them if you're going to make the championship. So if you're not in the top 60, it's time to maybe not press the panic button, but at least press the win now button, because that's going to be realistically your only shot to make the championship. And speaking of championships, only 3 anglers have ever qualified for the Bassmaster Classic, the FLW Championship, the Major League Fishing Red Crest, and, of course, the NPFL Championship. Those 3 guys who have qualified for the 4 big championships are John Cox, Greg Hackney, and Scott Suggs. But this season, 4 more anglers are on a pace to join that group, and they are Luke Clausen, Jacob Porosnik, Randall Tharp, and Greg Vinson. Right now, all 4 of them are looking good and in the top 26 of the standings. Will they all get it done? I think so. But there are still 3 tournaments to go, and a lot can happen. Now let's get on with the interviews. If you enjoy these interviews half as much as I did, then I will have enjoyed them twice as much as you. That's just the math, you know? You know, folks, one of the great joys of doing Roundtable and interviewing these terrific anglers in the NPFL and the personalities that we run into on the tour is I get to talk to the people I'm a fan of, a legitimate fan of, whether it's their personality or their style, or like this man, both. Of course, I'm talking about Randall Tharp. Big fan of Randall Tharp, the Honey Badger. Randall, welcome to Roundtable.
Well, thanks for having me, Ken. It's an honor to be on here with you. We've known each other a long time, and I look forward to chatting with you for the next hour. So however long you want to talk, I'm yours.
Well, we'll go. I don't want to take up your whole day, but I bet the audience does. I bet the audience would just would eat up the opportunity to sit with you all day and soak it all in. I know I would too, but I'm going to be merciful and I won't keep you that long. First of all, welcome to the NPFL. It's your first season in the league. And you're having a great year already. I mean, you got 6th place at the Harris Chain, in the low 30s at Millwood and Lay. So you're way up in the AOY rankings, and you're just doing great. So you're looking like a solid qualifier for the championship next year. And I'm just holding my breath waiting for you to win one, which I think is going to happen very soon as well.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a goal. I've really enjoyed the first 3 events. It seems overall, you know, I'd say half the field I already knew from fishing against them on previous tours. and the other half, it just seems like a really solid bunch of guys. I knew several of the people at NPFL prior to fishing there, but this year I've gotten to know Brad very well, Fuller, and the rest of the team, and I've never seen a team work as hard as those guys do, and it's been fun, and I look forward to going to Logan this week, and honestly, it's a lot of years that I didn't look forward to leaving the house too much, towards the latter half of my career, and it's refreshing now to feel that way, to be excited about fishing tournaments again and fishing in a league that I feel like appreciates us as anglers and what we bring to the table.
Yeah. And, although I've not fished competitively at your level, obviously, I see that. And I really enjoy the level of care and interest that the league puts in the anglers. And I'm glad that resonates among the field, because as you say, not all the leagues do that. Not all the leagues are out there launching your boat, pulling you out of the water at the end of the day, making sure that some of this stuff is cared for. That's not to say that everybody does everything perfect or that things always go smoothly, but I appreciate that you see the effort is there. And I'm glad you're enjoying the league, because the league is enjoying Randall Tharp. And one of the things I love about watching you is you are always a threat, my friend. Always a threat out there.
I've been doing it a long time, and I've worked really hard, over the years to try to stay relevant, to try to keep getting better, to try to keep learning. And I think that my quest to continue to learn and evolve as an angler has helped me be consistent over the years. It helps me make a championship every year. And obviously you can't win the championship unless you're fishing it. So that's a goal.
So
we've
true.
got two Coosa River events this year, and the championship's on the Coosa River, and I happen to love the Coosa River. So let's go.
You got a lot of experience around that Coosa River area, a lot of experience, not just in the Florida Panhandle and fishing there, but also, especially, I think, you got a lot of experience in Alabama. You got to be looking forward to Logan Martin.
Man, I really am. And I mean, a lot of people that don't really know my history think that I lived at Okeechobee. I've never lived at Okeechobee. I've never lived 8 hours from Okeechobee. But when I started tournament fishing years ago, I was in central Alabama, just north of Birmingham. So I had the Tennessee River, the Coosa River, Warrior River, Lewis Smith Lake. I'd fish Tuesday nighters on. So that's where I cut my teeth fishing. And I do live in Florida now, and I've always loved fishing in Florida as well. But I guess my heart's still in Alabama, and Roll Tide, by the way.
Well, that's the second time I've heard Roll Tide in doing these last couple episodes of Roundtable. I also heard it from Mike Comeau. But having so much experience in Florida, in Alabama, man, I cannot think of a better place to cut your teeth and become a professional bass angler than those two states. That's kind of ground central. If you can catch them in Florida and you can catch them in Alabama, you can pretty much catch them anywhere, can't you?
Man, it's tournament fishing central. Like it just is. Like I've always told people that you can probably find a tournament to fish somewhere in the state of Alabama every day of the year except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And somebody's probably there's probably a tournament on those days too, but there is really some amazing anglers there, local anglers, and just sticks. And if you can compete and beat those guys, you can probably compete and fish against anybody. And that's where I got my start. And I'm thankful. Bass fishing's been good to me. I've been doing this over 20 years now, and I'm blessed to work for some great companies, and they really, every single one of them just wants me to be happy. And I am now, fishing NPFL for sure.
Well, I know from experience that the companies that work with you value you tremendously, and they appreciate the attitude you bring, the professionalism you bring, and of course the success and notoriety that you bring to their brands. How much, when I look at a bass pro like a Randall Tharp, like all the guys out there who are successful, I think about the balance between the work you do on the water, catching fish, doing well in tournaments, and then the work you do off the water, promoting these brands, because that's all about selling. What percentage would you say is the off the water work for sponsors versus the on the water tournament stuff?
Wow. I kind of knew, because I've watched some of your other shows, that question was coming. And for me, it's probably much different than a lot of the other guys. I would say for me, off the water, 80%, maybe 20% on the water.
Whoa.
I honestly don't think I have a single sponsor that would care how many tournaments I fish or where. I definitely think they definitely want me to be happy. For me, the fishing part, it's a time to work on new products. It's a time to test line, rods, reels, baits, whatever it is that I'm working on at the time. And to put that stuff in a competitive setting is the ultimate test. But yeah, for me, it's 80% off the water. I do way more traveling for the companies that I work for, not fishing bass tournaments, and it's really all over the map. Because at one time I probably worked for 15 or 16 different companies. Now I have 8, and I'm really involved with probably 5 of those 8. And it's almost a daily thing, daily phone call, daily meeting, something like that, and especially, when we have a tournament or I'm guiding, every day, like I've been for the last 3 weeks, those phone calls don't stop. It can get exhausting a little bit, but I manage it because I really do love everybody that I work for.
I got to say, I'm shocked at the 80-20 number you throw out there. I was expecting you to hit me with 50-50, something like that. But that's a testament to what a great pro staff angler you are. And folks, Randall Tharp knows that pro staff means promotional staff. It's about
I don't really consider myself a pro staff. I would consider myself, I refer to it as an employee, but it's ironic though that I never would have dreamed when I got into bass fishing that this is where it would have ended up. Like I spend a few weeks in Asia every year working with some factories and manufacturers over there. And the common thing I can tell you, because everybody that I work for, I feel like is a really good, successful company. And I've also worked for other companies that didn't have this. But the commonality between all of them, whether it's an engine company, boat company, lure company, rod company, is if the people that own the company fish and are into fishing and actually love the sport, then there's a really good chance they're going to be a successful business in this industry. But there is there is a lot of companies making fishing stuff or boats or engines, and nobody there fishes. And that's, I'm thankful that I don't work for any of those companies. Everybody that I work for is obsessed with catching a bass and are building different things to help your quest to become a better angler. And that's kind of what I'm into now. And it's been a lot of fun. And I actually enjoy the trips that I have overseas. I got some really good teams, other anglers that I work with, a lot of them on NPFL, like Brandon Cobb, Wes Logan, Bill Lowen. Like those 3 are going to travel around the world with me this fall. And we're going to have a big
fantastic. The passion you have, not just for the sport, but for the industry, is obvious to anybody who meets Randall Tharp. The man's always smiling. He's always putting his best foot forward. He's always making a great impression upon the fans. And I feel like, and I don't know how this happens, it blows my mind that this happens, but a lot of younger people getting into the sport don't understand or don't seem to appreciate or somehow never picked up how important it is to be able to present yourself well and to do something more than just catch a fish. Does that surprise you? Because I feel like for the last 20 years, people like Randall Tharp and even people like me have been trying to tell the story about how important these other facets are. So does it surprise you that so many guys miss that?
No, because I think in the beginning I was naive to it as well. I can tell you for me, Ken, like when it changed is, I fished the FLW tour for I think 6 or 7 years. And I had a FLW team deal but really I wasn't in control of anything. And I'll never forget, finally making the jump to fish the Bassmaster Elite Series and just getting to know guys like Mike Iaconelli, Kevin Van Dam, Skeet Reese, Gerald Swindle, Aaron Martins was a good friend of mine. And watching those guys off the water and man, they are intimidating and they're amazing anglers and they are hard workers on the water. Yeah. But as well as I do, every one of those guys I mentioned work harder off the water.
You're so right.
I'll tell you a quick story without getting off on a tangent. But I was working ICAST. It was, probably my 10th one or something like that. And the show was over. We had all been there 3 days. Everybody's exhausted. And I was kind of help packing up, some rods and reels and stuff, taking them to the trailer. We didn't have like a crew, like we did it ourselves. And Skeet Reese walked by me with a big wad of them yellow rods, carrying them right past me to the trailer. And I was thinking, if he's not too good to do it, then I'm not either. And Skeet's Hall of Famer, and he's had a great career and won a lot of money and made a lot of money off the water as well. But those guys kind of inspired me and kind of showed me the game off the water. And, man, I appreciate it. And like, I'm in a much better place because of those guys, I think. And I do think the majority of young anglers are naive to how everything really works, though.
That's a shame. And we're not going to take the time here to get into the difference of, because I think I might be the only guy who's ever been on the payroll on some level of BASS, FLW, MLF, and NPFL. But all those organizations have a different business plan. All those organizations have a different way of going about things. And I know what you're talking about when you talk about the difference between the FLW team deals and then going over to BASS. And the guys you mentioned, yeah, those are some of the role models. Say what you will about their personalities and whether you like them as anglers or not, but the guys you rattled off the names there, they are pros in the truest sense of the term on the water and off, and as is Randall Tharp. All right. I want to go into a little bit of your fishing style, your philosophy. You've got such an amazing reputation with a 7.5 foot, 8 foot flipping stick, a big jig, a punch rig. How did that develop?
Man, it's really just the way I like to do things. Like I don't think you can be really, really good at everything. So I always just tried to pick a few things that I like to do but do my best to be the best at that. And that's something that early in my career, I just gravitated towards. I gravitated towards a big weight and catching fish flipping. And honestly, like I remember this distinctly. Somebody else that influenced me at a very young age was Denny Brower. I remember going to a Bass University years ago. There were 6 instructors there, and I went for 2 days. And I couldn't tell you who 5 of them were, but I'll never forget Denny Brower. And I was very fortunate that I got to fish against him a few times early in my career and get to know him just a little bit. I would have loved to have started my career a little earlier to be with those kind of guys more. But I think he helped shape Randall Tharp to some extent. And then obviously, like, I fished against Biffle all these years. I've roomed with Andy Morgan now, who is a guy I always looked up to. He was fishing professionally when I first started. And he was really the first professional angler that I ever met, because I had a camper up in Roseberry Creek on Gunnersville, and he stopped in there because he was good friends with my team partner. And, that's where it all started. Those guys molded me a little bit, I guess. And, I always compared my stats and my, accomplishments, I guess, to some of those same guys.
Morgan and Biffle as roommates. That's both sides. That's the whole spectrum.
I've never had Biffle as a roommate.
Oh, okay.
But Andy and Russ Lane are my roommates now. Gotcha. But yes, Andy for sure. I mean, I've
love those guys. I would say, much as I love Tommy Biffle, and he's a great guy, great angler. He and Andy Morgan would be kind of on different sides of the spectrum there, but they're a lot of fun. Talk about accomplishments, talk about resume. This year, you're going to do something that so far only 3 guys have done. You're going to be one of the first guys to qualify for a FLW championship, a Red Crest championship, a Bassmaster Classic, and I'll be shocked if you don't qualify for the 2027 NPFL championship. That's a heck of an accomplishment. That's success on every platform. Yeah,
I have missed a couple, but only a couple of championships in my whole career. So that's something I've always prided myself on.
And of course, you've won at that high level with FLW.
Yeah, I never got the classic. I had a few good opportunities there. Randy Howell got one of the ones, and Jordan Lee got another one that I thought I had a chance to win. But yeah, I was
they kind
very
of have
fortunate.
miracle wins that they kind of snatched it away from you.
Yeah, those guys, man, they're good fishermen, good guys, and I was happy for them. But those opportunities don't come along very often. And I have a second place in a Forest Wood Cup before I won it, so I knew what it took. And I mean, believe it or not, before I left the house, I had told a lot of people I was going to win that tournament, and I did end up winning. But I think that stubbornness is one of my downfalls and one of my, I guess, strongest attributes too. That stubbornness can help you and it can hurt you.
I like it. I like the confidence I like and appreciate the confidence of the best anglers, and I'm amused by the confidence of some of the worst anglers. But I won't go there. You know what I'm talking about. The guys who win practice.
Practice has never paid a single dollar in the 20 years I've been doing this. Not
yeah,
one time.
But we all know the same guys win practice almost every tournament. Doesn't matter where it is or whether it's a largemouth tournament or a smallmouth tournament or a spot tournament. The same guys always win practice.
It's hard for me to win practice because I never put a hook on, hardly ever where I go. So, and I know without a doubt that a lot of the fish I weigh in tournaments are the same fish that I shake off in practice. So why put a hook in one? I just need some bites. I don't really need to know how big they are.
Amen. Amen. Well, talk about the confidence, talk about the stubbornness, talking about all that. Let's talk about the nickname, Honey Badger. Where does that come from?
Well, it actually came, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there was a viral video on YouTube. This is years ago. Like, YouTube hadn't even been around that long. And it was about the honey badger, and it was like a National Geographic spin-off where they had taken some footage and put a B-roll to it. And my buddy Rob Newell saw similarities in what used to happen down at Okeechobee and that video. And so he's the one that nicknamed me the Honey Badger. And,
Rob Newell, great writer for FLW for many years, media guy. Just published a book about tournament bass fishing a year or so ago.
Yeah, Egos, Logos, and Fishing Pros. And it's a great book. I highly recommend it to anybody, high school, college, or anybody that is considering doing this for a living, because I don't think there's ever been a book about bass fishing that documents factually from the very inception of this sport to today, like that book did, and the highs and the lows that, within the industry and the sport and how it's evolving. And there's actually, in the end, kind of some predictions for the future that when he wrote it, I wasn't sure. And now I'm like, man, he was pretty spot on with the whole book. So, but yeah, Rob, he's still a good friend. I don't fish with a whole lot of people recreationally, but I do fish with Rob occasionally, and I actually stopped by his house the other day and talked to him. So great guy, good book. And I'm not sure I'm happy about the Honey Badger name. I definitely wasn't happy at first, but now it's 10, probably 15 years ago. So I just roll with it.
Yeah, you've had, I just thought it was a kind of a strange nickname for a guy I've always known as being friendly and enormously professional and just extremely gracious. And he's called, his nickname is this vicious animal. But I still like it. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool nickname. And one of the things we brought into Roundtable this year, Randall, is a thing I'm calling show and tell. And I asked you, I said, bring me a bait or two. Maybe it's something that's going to be a player at the next tournament, Logan Martin. Maybe it's a sentimental favorite bait. Maybe it's something you've basically always got tied on, or that you just think is a really important bait. I call it MVB, most valuable bait to Randall Tharp. Mm-hmm. What do you got for us today?
All right, I got it right here. So I never leave home without this particular color of and size jig. This is a Randall Tharp flipping jig, 1/2 ounce golden crawl. This is actually the exact same color that I won the Elite at Bull Shoals on. You can see I've got a Zoom Big Salty chunk on it. This is 16-pound gamma line on a Randall Tharp King Cobra flipping stick. so I designed the bait, I designed the hook, I designed the rod, I designed the reel, and I didn't really have a lot to do with this line, but that's about the only piece to this puzzle that I didn't help build myself. So never leave home without that Tharp flipping jig.
Well, first of all,
in
let
that
me say,
particular color.
when you've designed everything, you can't blame equipment failure anymore.
Well, I know if I fail, it's usually my fault. Like I've got some of the best equipment from whether it's this bass boat sitting here, the engine on it, or all my rods and reels and stuff. Like I do feel like I have the very best.
I was just kidding about that, but man, what a statement to your career and your accomplishments that you designed the rod, the reel, the bait. Everything is to your taste. That's pretty spectacular.
I don't know about everything,
well,
but I do know about jig fishing, and I have tinkered with them since I started building them, different hooks, different designs, and really I had worked with several different companies and built a couple different jigs that have my name on them. But the thing that always limited me was the hook, because we just bought a good hook and put in it, and this is the first time that I actually had not input, but I designed the entire hook, and that hook's in a lot of other products that we build too. So it's very unique. There's nobody else that has one like it yet. And when they do copy it, we've already got one I'm working on that's going to be better.
I love it. See, if somebody wants to fish your equipment, they can probably go to Tackle Warehouse, search the word Tharp, and get everything they need.
Everything I just showed you would definitely pop right up on Tackle Warehouse.
That's fantastic. Well, now, before you show me the other bait, and I already see it there, so I know where we're going, let's talk a little bit about, obviously a jig is a big player for you. I think everybody who's a Randall Tharp fan knows that. But is this a jig that is coast to coast, border to border, Florida, deep, clear, Highland type reservoirs everywhere you go?
Yeah, we make that jig in a 3/8, a half, a 5/8, a 3/4, and a 1. So there's some things I do to it. I can catch them on it everywhere I go. It's a super versatile flipping jig. I still, if I'm going to swim a jig, Wes Logan, built one, that we worked on together, and that's the one I love to swim. But jig fishing, Bill's we're working on some more finesse-y style. Bill's from up there around the Ohio River, and so last year we went overseas, and he's working on a whole nother line of more what I would call more finesse-y style jigs than mine and Wes's.
Right.
And I don't think you can do everything with mine or Wes's, but when we get Bill's done and we built some more new hooks for Bill, I do think that ARC is the company that's we're working with building this stuff.
Great
company. I think
company.
that it will be the most complete line of really good jigs of anybody's.
Yeah, ARC has expanded its offerings into just about everything. I mean, you can pretty much outfit yourself with just ARC stuff, and you're going to be good to go. Now, but yours is a jig you can flip. Yours is a jig you can crawl. Yours is a jig that serves, maybe not the ideal swim jig, a few other things, but it's got a big enough hook for flipping pitching, and it's got everything you need for this other stuff. What's so special about that color? Did you say golden craw?
It's just, I think color, I'm not a big color guy. That's the color I won bull shoals on. I haven't found a place yet that they wouldn't bite it. I honestly, we make probably 30 SKUs of my jig. In my boat, I have four colors. I just keep it simple, and I actually only carry 3 different colors of trailers: green pumpkin, black with blue flake, and sapphire blue. And my jigs are the same. I have a pale olive color, which is super clear water that I throw. If it's a stained water situation, it's the golden craw, and then the just black and blue. And,
black and blue would be like a Florida tannin stained waters.
That's correct. Those will get it done anywhere. But colors are funny. Like there's certain lakes where certain colors are shine, and that's why we make so many different. And also took a lot of input from other anglers with the colors. I got one named after Jared Lintner. I got one named after Denny Brower that was one of his colors. I've actually got one that we're fixing to come out with, which is one of Andy Morgan's colors. So, I want, those are colors they have confidence in. And if it's good enough for them, it's good enough to, to put on one of my jigs. So,
Denny Brower told me something interesting. You mentioned Denny because I love Denny Brower. Told me something interesting one time. He said that if you're an inexperienced angler and you're wondering what color to throw or something like that, he said you can borrow somebody's confidence. So I can pick up your golden craw and I can borrow some Randall Tharp confidence, knowing that you've had enormous success with that bait.
Yeah, I think confidence is the biggest key in being successful fishing. I honestly, I don't think that you're going to go win a tournament if you don't believe you're going to win it. When you get there, you got to believe you deserve to win, and you got to believe you're going to win, or you won't win. And I think a lot of, not just in fishing, just any type of athlete or any type of sports, if you don't feel like you deserve it or you're going to do it, you're probably not. And I look back at the really good times of my career where I was just fishing. I call it unconscious. I felt like nobody was working harder than me. I felt like nobody, even if I didn't have a good event, I just knew I was working hard enough and I should, prevail in the end. And I think that's one reason that I'm here today still.
Well, it's worked out. You've been remarkably consistent. You're about to close the door and be one of the first handful of guys to qualify for all 4 major tour championships. That's impressive. That's worth putting on the resume, I think. And okay, but you got another bait for us, and I already see what it is, and I can't say I'm shocked.
Well, I would like to tell you that in my career I've been like a Brian Thrift, like a bait guy, always on the cutting edge of new stuff. But I'm stubborn. I was stubborn with the Alabama rig. I was stubborn with the chatterbait, and I've been stubborn with that thing. I mean, this is the full cast Koike. It's the same bait that Alex won Lay Lake on. And I'm not going to be stubborn this week at Logan Martin. And I do think that anybody in our field that doesn't have one of these tied on is asking for trouble, because it's clearly not going away. It's clearly I think it's just almost like a new bait category. And I just feel like this thing is just the infancy of what it can do, because it has proven itself over the last, come to find out, 2 years that guys have been keeping it a secret. It has won a lot of tournaments and it's won a lot of money. So I had to have this thing out. I had to show it off. And man, I hope I get a few bites on it. I've got little ones, medium sized ones, and big ones tied on. So
all right, you're going to break my heart if you tell me you got one of those things on 7 rods in different colors.
I got one on a spinning rod, and then I have that one on, but I have several medium. I got a really big one and a really small one tied on, and I've got some medium ones rigged up. But I'm trying to be efficient and I took a bunch of stuff out of my boat before this tournament, so I don't like a bunch of rods.
Oh, what's a lot of rods on the deck for Randall Tharp in competition?
Man, if it's more than 6, I get a little anxiety. I mean, I see. Whoa. Like, I was watching Lay Lake and Patrick Walters, and he must have had 25 rods. He had more rods on his deck than I have in my boat altogether, in the boxes and everything. That's not me.
I counted 28 on either in his hand or on his deck one day.
Yeah, I don't even have 28 rods, so I don't even own that many.
Well, I love what you're saying about the urchin. This is a bait style that's really still in its infancy. Guys are still figuring out. Well, I think guys are still figuring out how to rig it. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm playing with it every day, like just and trying to, I think some guys have some really unique rigging things they're keeping, under wraps. I think there's a lot of false information going around right now about the best ways to do it. But ultimately, it's just like you got to have confidence in the way you're rigging the thing, and you got to have confidence in it, or you're not going to, stick with it long enough to let it prove itself. But I think Alex showed everybody at the NPFL what it's capable of. And obviously, like guys like Drew Cook and some of the other ones have been using it for quite a while and making a lot of money with it. So I'm not going to be stubborn anymore about it.
Initially, I was kind of dismissing it as just a forward-facing open water kind of thing, but we're seeing now it's a shallow water cover thing, and it's awfully versatile, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't see any situations where it's not going to work. You know, we're going to Thousand Islands up there to St. Lawrence, and I'm quite sure that those smallmouth probably haven't seen it very much. They're going to eat it very good. And where is it not going to work? It's going to work everywhere, I think.
That's crazy. Now, you mentioned confidence. So you mentioned confidence a couple times in our conversation, and I want to zero in on that for a second. Because the urchin style bait is so new, where is your confidence level? If your confidence level in that Randall Tharp jig is at 10, which it should be, because by God, that thing catches fish and you wear them out with it. If that's at 10, where's your urchin confidence?
It's not very high right now, but it'll only take a few bites for me to feel good about it. Yeah, I haven't spent the time with it like Alex did. I know how much time he spent, you know, basically getting confident. He proved it to himself that was the best thing to be throwing before he ever went to Lay Lake. And, you know, that kind of is what it takes, I think. Is mine where it needs to be with the urchin? No. Actually, I didn't even have I think I had 3 at Lay Lake. I've got 100 now. So what does that tell you? At least I'm prepared.
I love it. I love that you're a guy who's going to adapt. Yeah, you may not be Brian Thrift in terms of ready to pick up anything new. And so many guys have told me through the years, Randall, that they were slow to adapt to the Senko, the stickworm style bait. Mm-hmm. They were slow to adapt to the bladed jig or the chatterbait. And they were slow to adapt to the Alabama rig. And I appreciate the fact that it seems like guys are quicker to pick up the urchin maybe than they were those other baits. Is that a sign of the times, or are people just less hard-headed in 2026?
I think it's a sign of the times. I think they are a little less hard-headed, and I also think that it's just been so dominant. Like it's hard to ignore what, you know, the amount of big fish that bait has caught just in a relatively short period of time. And it's actually, you know, it's a bait's been out for a really long time. It's just only been used over here for a couple of years now. But yeah, I think it has definitely a lot of applications that are kind of undiscovered. I'm going to catch some saltwater fish on it soon. I haven't had any time to go play around when I didn't have customers in the boat. So, but I definitely think for inshore species like speckled sea trout or redfish, it's going to catch them for sure.
Amazing. Is it the ugliest lure you've ever seen?
No, it's not the ugliest, but I look at something like that and I try to figure out what makes this effective, what makes it work. And I'll give you my theory on the urchin.
Yeah.
So if you tie a stick, like you mentioned, a Senko or a stickworm, when you wacky rig that worm and you throw it out and you twitch it, it has a lot of resistance in the water. It almost, you know, it wants to stay in place when you try to move it. And I think a bass is specifically, like, they feed a lot. They can feel it. They can feel it with their lateral line. I think that Senko did that. And I think the urchin does it more. Like it displaces
more water.
A lot of water around. It doesn't want to move forward. And I think when that bait collapses and then springs back to life, it's throwing a lot of, if there's a fish runs up there to look at it and it throws all that water back at it, just like a stickworm, they just can't handle it for some reason. So, I mean, that's my theory with it. You know, it doesn't really look like anything, maybe a ball of bait or you know, who knows what they think it is. But one thing's for sure is it catches a lot of big fish.
If there was something in the water alive that looked like that, I would leave. I would not want to be anywhere near it.
If that full cast koiki came swimming up to me, I would definitely be getting out of the water.
I'm gone at that point. Hey, you started talking about putting that urchin bait to use in saltwater. You spend a lot of time guiding, doing some inshore guiding for tarpon, redfish. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this has actually been my busiest time of year. Like when I got back from Lay Lake, I had that Sunday off, but I've been on the water pretty much every day. I think I took a couple weeks. I try not to book on the weekends because I just need some time to recover and get everything back in order. But I was on the water yesterday, and today's really the first. I have today and tomorrow kind of to regroup and get my stuff ready to roll again bass fishing. But I've had my captain's license for 4 years now. I don't, every single day year round. I don't do that when I'm not bass fishing, but this time of year, and then there's a couple months in the fall where I'm pretty busy. That's our best redfish time here on the Forgotten Coast. And but tarpon season seems to be the most popular thing, and that's what we got going on here right now. And we got a bunch of fish, and I've had a lot of mainly repeat customers, but a few new ones this year that I think will be coming back that have seen some pretty amazing stuff over the last 3 weeks.
That's wonderful. I got to believe that the only thing better than hanging out with Randall Tharp and talking about fishing would be actually being out there with Randall Tharp fishing. How can people find you and book a trip with you?
My website, randytharp.com. I have all of my bass fishing tournament information on there, as well as my guide services and what I charge and how to book. You can book directly on there, and or inquire about a trip, and I'll get back with you on that. But it's been a lot of fun, and I've got some really good. It's almost just like taking a good friend fishing. And I guess for me, it's one thing for me to be able to go out there and catch fish. It's still challenging, especially catching like a big tarpon on fly. That's a challenge for anybody. But,
right.
When a guy shows up and he meets me here at the house, or he meets me at the dock, and he gets in my boat and I don't know who he is, and I see kind of what I'm working with, it's just another level to continue to challenge myself to, all right, now what can I do so I can get this guy to get his fly in front of a 150-pound fish? Like that is, it's way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I've got a lot more respect now for the really good guys around here that make a living doing that. It's way harder and it's way more work than I ever thought it would be. But man, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the challenge of that. And I think until I can't physically stand up on the polling platform anymore, I'm going to do that at least with my favorite people that hire me every year. I'll do that till I can't stand up anymore.
You obviously have a passion for it, and you're a people person. You just alluded to something that reminded me of a line one of my fishing guide buddies told me 30 years ago. He said, when you're a fishing guide, he said, every day is a blind date. You got to size up that client. Can they throw a bait caster, or can they do this, or can they do that kind of fishing? And that's got to be a challenge. But
yeah, I wished I would have went to school for like some kind of like I didn't know I was going to be like a counselor, like trying to. I have seen the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, especially over the last 3 weeks. I've had some meltdowns, and then 10 minutes later they're on cloud 9, and it's watching that roller coaster from that platform on the back. It's pretty entertaining at times.
Have you got a camera so you can play these things back later? Because that could be a wildly successful YouTube channel.
You know what? It would be. And I've thought a lot. I'm very, very protective of this area where I live. I don't do a lot of social media posts. There's a lot of other people that look at that stuff, and I'm just protective. So I don't post a lot of big fish pictures or anything like that. Like I want it to stay special. I don't want a million people out there fishing the water that I'm fishing every day. So for that reason, I don't. But the camera thing is something I'm struggling with, because I know that it would probably bring me enough business for the rest of my life. I just don't really want to exploit this area that way. And I don't think it's fair to my other guides here that feel the same way. We're very protective of this water.
Well, and obviously you should be. You got something special there. But I'm willing to bet that the reason you're booking so many clients and the reason you're so successful with this, or at least you're as successful as you want to be and busy as you want to be, is because they have a chance to go fishing with Randall Tharp. Yeah, the fishing's good. Yeah, the fishing's good, and that's great. But there's a lot of good fishing, and the opportunity to go fishing with Randall Tharp is special. Now, last question for you, because this fascinates me about guys like you who are terrific at inshore and other styles of fishing. Because you mentioned throwing the urchin for redfish and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How much does your saltwater fishing help to affect, influence, improve your freshwater fishing, and how much does it go the other way, or if at all?
Oh, I definitely think that they both, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, obviously I was a freshwater bass tournament angler first. And especially there's a lot of things that I do saltwater fishing that, I mean, I just transitioned straight to it. As far as once I started fly fishing a lot, probably 10 years ago, I think everything I had learned bass fishing hurt that. So
Really?
yeah, so there's, there's a lot of, a whole different, just, it seems like hundreds. It's probably more like maybe a dozen or so new knots I had to learn. Just a lot of different ways of rigging for saltwater that doesn't really apply to freshwater. A lot of the tackle is just way bigger. But they have both helped for sure. Saltwater fish tend to move, bass, they don't swim from one end of the lake to the other during a tournament. I mean, they move in and out and change every day, but not to the extreme of saltwater fish. So I definitely think it's helped me be more open-minded at a, say, lake or whatever, about what's going on. But they've both been beneficial to each other, and they definitely have fed off of each other some. But I definitely also think the fly fishing game for me, it hurt. There's not much similarities between a flip or a bass cast and a fly cast. I would equate a good fly fisherman to a really good golfer. Really good timing, really good feel. It doesn't take a lot of power. It takes a lot of finesse.
It is, and I love fly fishing. Okay, which is worse, the nail knot or the FG?
The FG's worse. I actually tie the FG on a lot of stuff, and it's not as hard as it used to be. And I'm just like Alex Davis said. I put the end of the braid in my mouth, and that's it. So it's like you have three hands. But if he can tie one as fast as he said he could on your podcast, I want to see it.
That's going to be another component of NPFL tournaments in the future. Is going to be knot tying contests. That's what I want to see. But I hate the nail knot, and I'm not that fond of the FG. But I get what you're saying. I love fly fishing. I love all the different kind of fishing that you do. I love what you bring to the sport. I love the contributions you make to our game. And I appreciate you, Randall Tharp. Thanks for your time today and all that you do for our sport.
Well, thanks for having me on. I would love to do it again sometime, and I look forward to seeing you in just 2 or 3 days.
Well, yeah, just a couple of days. But you know what? Here's the easiest way to get on the next episode of Roundtable is to go out and win Logan Martin. And then I'll bring you in just to talk about that experience.
You interviewed Alex Davis, and then prior to Lake, and he won. So I'm going to try to keep this trend going next week.
It's good luck to be on this show.
I hope so. I hope that works out. And then if I win, promise me this: if I win Logan Martin, that you will have me on prior to the river tournament up there at St. Lawrence. I
personally guarantee it. Randall Tharp, you're always welcome on anything I do, anything we got going on in NPFL, man. You're a joy. And like I said, you do so much for the sport. And I appreciate that. I started in this industry admiring the guys who could really catch them. Over the years, I admire the guys who bring a lot to the sport, and that's you. So thank you for that. And I'll definitely have you back on Roundtable soon.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you in a few days.
Take care, Randall. Appreciate you.
Hi, my name is Hunter Gentry, and I'm the Director of Historic Main Street, Oxford, and we just want to welcome the National Professional Fishing League to Oxford, Alabama. Positioned here in downtown Oxford, and just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about our downtown district and what we have while you guys are in town. Of course, we have our tackle and bait shop, the Tackle Box. It's located on Main Street. We have several different options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in our downtown district. And we also have a variety of different shopping options. So before you guys go back home, that you can shop for your families and your wives and girlfriends and whoever else. But we just want to welcome you to Oxford and hope that you have a wonderful experience while you're here. And thank you again for being here.
Doing Roundtable is a great joy because I get to talk to the anglers in the NPFL. And my next guest is not just an angler in the NPFL, but he's one of the original anglers in the NPFL. And not only that, folks, he is the majority owner of the NPFL. I'm talking about Mike Comeau. Mike, welcome to Roundtable.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you having me. Glad to be here.
Well, exciting to have you here. This is the first time I've had a chance to get you on Roundtable, and I'm getting you on here for a few reasons. One is next tournament's Logan Martin. That's now your home state, and Mike is originally from Vermont, but now he's living in Alabama. And what is that transition like?
It has been interesting to say the least. Both my wife and I were born and raised in Vermont, so that's just a big step whenever you leave from the place that you were born and raised. So it was a big adjustment. But now we're on a big farm, and that's something that her and I dabbled in a little bit back at home. Definitely more my wife, but the farm has probably been as big of an adjustment as moving. It's a lot of work, there's a lot of moving parts, but we're having fun with it.
Now, I misspoke a little bit because I said you're the majority owner of the NPFL, but in fact, it's you and your wife, Catherine, who are the majority owners of the NPFL, and have been really since almost the beginning, since the end of the first season. Mike and Catherine stepped in to pull the NPFL out of a difficult situation. And although, Mike, you're the majority owners of the NPFL, your day-to-day involvement is really not very time consuming. It's not all consuming. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I came onto the league on year one. I've been here since year one. I started fishing. I believe Charlie Ingram called me and said, "Hey, have you heard about this new league that's starting?" And I think I had heard about it, but it wasn't on my radar. Charlie said, "I think I'm going to fish it. You and I ought to fish it together." So that's what we did, and I had a blast. I was having fun. I think that first year, I struggled on every other year, but that first year, I think there was one time where I was even up in the top 15 in points. Like I was having a really good run, and then I think I bombed the last tournament or two and dropped me down. But I was having a lot of fun, cash and checks, and I remember coming home from the Grand Lake event. And I think that's the one. I think I was in Florida, and I got a call from Brad Fuller. And when I initially saw the call coming in, I was like, "Oh, geez, did I do something? Why is is there something going on?" And Brad and I had a conversation about where the league was and where it was going. And I called my wife after that call and said, "I don't know whether this is a great investment or not. I really don't know where this is going to go, but I am having a lot of fun fishing it. I don't want to see it go away. I'm not looking to run the business," because I think that was her biggest fear. I said, "Let's just be the investors in this thing." I really believe in Brad and Michelle and Al and Paul, and believed in what they were doing. And I said, "Let's be the investor in this." And I called Brad back and said, we would do it. But I said I would only do it on the caveat that I could continue fishing, because that was the whole point of investing, was I wanted to continue to fish. Now, we both know that there's been other owners and other leagues that have tried similar thing, and it doesn't always work. So I tried very, very hard to keep a separation between day-to-day operations and the investor. And I think for a year, I don't think anybody knew that my wife and I were the investors. We told Brad we wanted to keep it quiet. That really didn't work, because as anglers, they're going to dig and pry and try to figure stuff out. And with all the podcasts, everybody was in. And I got asked the question point blank a couple times if I was the investor. And I said no. And it started to become more frequent, where I felt like I'm just lying to people, and it just didn't feel right. I started lying to my friends. I had friends calling saying, "You are the investor." And I was like, no, I'm not. And that just got uncomfortable. And so that's when we made the conscious decision just to let anglers know that I was. I think most of them believe me, but I think some of them question. how much involvement I really do have, but I really have none. I find out, for instance, the tournament just got changed from Lake George to Lake Dart, and now I
Yeah,
was
the season
out.
finale.
I was out on a tractor and got my phone went off an alert that Brad was live on Facebook, and I watched it and found out like everybody else. He didn't call me to say this is what we're doing. There was no. That's just, and that's the God honest truth, that I help when I'm asked to help, and I help when I see areas where I can help. But mostly it was a financial support is what my wife and I have given. And
Well, as a guy who has had the great privilege of working with the NPFL for the last couple of years, I can vouch for a lot of what Mike's talking about, because I see a lot of the things happening, and I know that Mike is just an angler when it comes to a lot of these aspects. But let's talk for just a moment about a couple of the places where you have stepped in and made a incredible difference and a positive difference. For example, and I think the biggest change in the NPFL the last couple of years has been the production elements and full com media. Can you tell us a little bit about full com media, because a lot of people may not be aware that's the company, that's the platform that is bringing the NPFL to people through YouTube and through the website and stuff like that at a bigger and better level than ever before.
yeah, so the Fullcom thing really came about from my business knowledge from my previous businesses that I've owned. And while I value third parties and forming partnerships with other businesses, you also have to be somewhat careful, because as we know, relationships in whether in a business or personal, they can sometimes drift apart, or things just kind of go left or right. And early on when I came on with Brad, I did tell him that it would be great if a lot of this third party stuff that we were doing, if we could ever get to a point where we could bring this back in-house where we had control. Because I'll be honest, Ken, the bass fishing, what we do, we are a media company first. The bass fishing is second. You and I have spoke about this. We could be running a bicycle race or a foot race. We're just using bass fishing as our platform to advertise for our media. So if you're going to go off from that platform, if you were going to third party source something within your business, would it be the most important part of your business? Most likely not. And in this case, Fullcom, one could argue, is the most important piece of our business, because that's really where the revenue is generated and created, is through the live broadcast and advertising for our sponsors. So for me, all along, it never really made a lot of business sense that was the piece that we were farming out. To be really honest, if we wanted a third party to do something, I would hire a third party to do the weigh-in or do that part of it, right? Because that's sort of the secondary. So like with most things, we had a great run with the previous production crew, but we just got to a point where things just weren't aligning right anymore. They had a different view. We had a different view, completely fine. And I just told Brad, I said, this is our opportunity to step away and recapture all that and make sure that our media portion and our tournament portion are lock sync and moving together for what the league needs. And it was, I had to sit down with my wife and we had to have a conversation about whether or not we were going to be willing to step up and help fund this. Because the one thing we didn't want to do was to take money from the NPFL to give to Fullcom, because that would mean taking money away from the anglers, from the tournament portion. And we felt like we had a good tournament series running, and to take money and funds away from them that could diminish that. So my wife and I stepped up again, with Brad and Michelle also stepped up, and we formed a 50-50 partnership with Fullcom between my wife and I and Brad and Michelle. And again, we mostly are the investors, And again, Brad and Michelle do 99% of the work.
I know better. Well,
that's
first
good,
of all,
right?
I
Yeah.
think the NPFL may be the only business entity I've ever seen where the work equals more than 100%. Okay.
I think you're right. I think Brad probably does 150%. I don't know.
Well, you and Catherine are also making a big contribution. Michelle Fuller
yes,
is the
whole ownership
so much of
group
a
is
force
making,
behind a lot of it. Yeah.
the whole ownership group, from Paul to Al to even Sean, yourself, everybody that has any kind of involvement with the NPFL, this is a love affair, because as far as I know, and I do know, nobody is being compensated for the amount of effort that they're putting in here. So this is definitely a love thing for everybody, and that's good.
It's by far the best group of people I've ever had the privilege of working with. And one guy we didn't mention, who is a key component of Fullcom, other than you, Catherine, Brad, Michelle, is Mike Otten and his team.
I think he's the most important piece, even more important than my wife and I as investors, and possibly more important than Brad. I don't think Fullcom runs without Mike. Well, I know it doesn't. And I think Brad would attest to that too. It just doesn't.
I think it's probably fair, you can stop me, to say that Mike is sort of the expertise behind it. Yeah. And on tournament days, he is just one of the hardest working guys you'd ever want to see.
Yeah, yes.
And there was a glimpse of Mike's barn cat.
Yes.
Who doesn't go to the barn anymore.
That was the barn cat that came with the farm when we purchased it. We found out very quickly that he is not a barn cat.
That's now an indoor cat. Well, it's amazing to work with the NPFL, to see such a small see what a small dedicated group of people can do.
Yeah.
Because the staffs are so much smaller at the NPFL than other leagues, and I've worked with them all, but more dedicated, more authentic, just enormously impressive. And let's shift gears, because although you are, with your wife Catherine, the majority owners of NPFL, you got into it because of your love of fishing. Where does that come from?
Came from an early age. I was lucky enough to be born in Burlington, Vermont, which, if anybody knows that area, Lake Champlain, I still would argue, I mean, one could throw the St. Lawrence River in there. There's probably a few other fisheries I haven't been to. I heard there's some great fisheries in California and some different places, but I don't know how you can make a list and Lake Champlain is not in the top 5. That's me personally. I might be biased, but I would even argue top 3. So it's hard not to fall in love with any sort of fishing when you grow up on one of the world's best fisheries. I was lucky enough that my father, while he's not a avid fisherman as I am, he still enjoyed the outdoors, deer hunting, duck hunting. So we always had a boat. He would take me out fishing. I think where I was really fortunate is both of my grandparents, father and mother's side, both had lake houses.
Oh, nice.
And they were in, one was in a bicycle ride distance from my house. So I could ride my bicycle down there, and we always had access to boats or fishing off the dock. And it was in a really good area of fishing, so you could catch a lot of fish right off the dock. My mother's side, my grandfather had a house in the inland sea, which most everybody that knows anything about bass fishing on Lake Champlain, the inland sea area has always played in any of the tournaments. It's a wonderful area. So we could catch big bass right off his dock. And so that was kind of the love of where it came from. I've always been a competitive person, competitive skier, bicyclist. My mother was into bowling. I did that for a year or so, but it seemed like anything I ever got involved in always turned into competing in it. Like I haven't had a hobby yet where I just do the hobby and just enjoy it. It always morphs into competing or competitiveness in some way. And I don't know why that is. I guess it's just my nature. So gravitated. I remember going to Mallett's Bay one time with my father, and there was a club tournament going on, and I saw guys coming off the water in their fancy boats, and then they were weighing fish. And I had never seen anything like that. Guys walking across the parking lot with bags of fish. And I said, boy, what are those guys doing? And I was curious what they were doing with those fish. And then I learned it was a tournament, and I was watching them weigh them. And then I saw guys getting the big checks, and I was like, I want to do that, like fish those tournaments, you know? And so I just made it a goal, and that's kind of where it ended up.
That's wonderful. I'm still a little taken aback by the move from Vermont. It was one thing when you were still living in Vermont, but wintering in Florida, and you still go back to Vermont, obviously. You still have a lot of connections there.
Sure.
But now you've relocated kind of permanently to Alabama. Yeah. I know y'all don't like to leave the farm. You've got animals there. It's a real passion. How do you leave a place like Champlain behind? And I give Alabama a lot of credit. It's kind of got everything.
It was difficult, and difficult for a multitude of reasons. It was difficult because it was where my wife and I were born and raised, and I think that's a difficult move for anybody.
Yeah.
And I think if you do it at a younger age, maybe not. But my wife and I were in our 50s, and to just uproot, we have grandkids there, and that made it hard. For me personally, it also made it hard to leave what I think is the greatest lake. Like, why would somebody that's so into the outdoors leave such a great place? So more people want to move there than want to move away. I mean, how many times have you heard interviews from some of the elite guys or whatever, and whenever they go up to Champlain or the St. Lawrence during their interview, like, I think I'm going to buy a place here. Yeah. And so that was always, that was weird. The other thing that was weird was we owned a beautiful home there. And on Lake Champlain, they have very big restrictions on what you can build along the lake now. You pretty much can't build anything anymore. We had a beautiful home in the best part of the lake. And I knew if we sold that place, the odds of ever being able to get it back or get anything like it were zero. Yeah. So that was a big commitment. It wasn't like, oh, well, we can move, and if we don't like it in a year, we'll just come back. That's not, yes, we could go back to Vermont, but duplicate the house that Catherine and I had and the location, not going to happen. It's not. So those were big hurdles. The Alabama thing, funny enough, happened. We were not looking at Alabama. This is where we ended up. So we were in Florida for the winter. I always had to dream. I'm a big deer hunter. I go out to Kansas. I got big land out there. I always thought it'd be nice to own a big piece of land and have my own lake. And Catherine likes the animals and her horses. And we really just wanted to be stationary and not the back and forth from Florida to Vermont. I know it seems glamorous to go back and forth between two houses, but trust me, it's not. It was like moving twice every year. It was a real pain in the butt. So we just said, you know what? We will move if we find the property that checks all of these boxes. And the boxes that we had were probably going to be impossible to check all those. But her and I just started to look around, and this property in Tuscaloosa, just outside of Tuscaloosa, came up for sale. And we were looking in Kentucky, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. We really didn't care what state we lived in, as long as it had all the boxes checked. And this place came up for sale. My wife was very hesitant to come to this property. It's got a couple of Airbnbs on it. She wasn't sure that she liked it. I convinced her, let's just go up and look at it. So we came up and looked. I don't think we made it halfway up the driveway. And she looked at me and said, I don't know how we're going to pull this all off, selling the houses or doing this and that, but you need to buy this place. Like, this is where we're moving to.
That's love at first sight right there.
Yes. And we left the property. We actually were going to go look at a couple more properties. We left. We pulled into a Whataburger on our way to go look at the next property. I went in, got us some hamburgers. I came out and she was in tears in the car. And I, as most men, were like, oh boy, what does this mean? Like, did I do something? Is her hamburger wrong? Like, I don't know. Like, what's going on here, right? And she was basically like, I'm not going to look at any more properties. I don't call the realtor, cancel those other ones. I want to live there. And that's what we're buying. And I said, okay. And that's what we did. We sold the other houses and decided that this particular farm, I don't think we chose Alabama. We chose this property was going to be where we lived. And it just happened to be in Alabama.
I understand. Yeah. Well, I think a nearby Whataburger would probably seal the deal for me. Now since you're near Tuscaloosa, I guess I don't have to ask you the question of, Roll Tide or War Eagle.
Yeah, we have to do the Roll Tide. What's funny, I knew what Roll Tide was. I'm not going to go and say that I'm a huge college sports follower, but I knew what Roll Tide was. I remember we went to a few stores and my wife asked, she was, what is this Roll Tide thing? And, I sort of explained it to her and said, down here in the South, they take these college football and their other sports very, very, very serious. See, in Vermont, we didn't really have any college football teams or professional teams or up there in the Northeast. So it's not taken to the level that it is here. And I told her, I said, we have to be Roll Tide fans now, whether you want to be or not. That's just what we are. So we laugh and joke about it now. We're very interested. We follow the team now because we have some rental houses on our property that are in close proximity. So we do keep track now with the football schedule, and we kind of know some of the players, and we keep track of whether they're winning or losing because it does help us here on the farm. It benefits us to follow it. So that's interesting. So we're Roll Tide fans now.
That's a built-in clientele for those rental homes because Alabama is always going to have an outstanding football program.
We hope so. And it is a built-in. I would say, my wife would know more because that's really her thing, but I would say 90% of the bookings that we get have something to do with the school. Whether it be a game, parents' weekend, graduation, so on and so on. It always seems to be something around the school. So it definitely helps. So we keep track of what the school is doing and keep track of the sports just because of that reason. Yeah. All
right. Now I'm going straight hardcore into fishing, Mike. Okay. And I'm going to ask you the question that Brad Fuller personally prohibited me from asking this season, but I'm going to make an exception for you. I want you to tell me, without using the word versatile, describe for me your fishing style.
If I had my way, I would say power fishing. I like to throw at targets. I like to visually see what I'm throwing at. I can fish offshore, but I would rather I need to know that something's there. I'm not the guy that can just go offshore and randomly go around. I got to know that I'm throwing to a rock pile or I'm throwing to a stump. So I'm much more comfortable visually being up on shore. It keeps my mind stimulated. It keeps me from wandering. It keeps me engaged with what's going on. And I like to throw at targets, and I like to be winding something. I can throw a jig or fish slow. I can do that kind of stuff, but I would much prefer to put the trolling motor on some medium level speed and just go down the bank and cover water.
Now, has your swim jig game picked up since the move to Alabama?
I have been working on it, and I cannot seem to get the Alabama shake thing down. I don't know if I've got to practice chewing gum and walking and patting my head and belly at the same time, but this whole reeling while you're doing the shake thing has become a challenge for me. I find that I either do one of two things. I either start reeling too slow or too fast, or I start over shaking the rod. These guys that have it down to a science have the exact amount of shake and the exact amount of reel. And even though it doesn't appear like it, I've watched Wes. There does seem to be some cadence between the shake and the reel. It's almost like before the reel starts picking up line, that's when the shake is. So even though it doesn't appear like it, they're almost shaking it on a slack line because the reel isn't, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a very specific cadence.
You've got some of the best swim jig guys in the world fishing the NPFL. Guys like Scott Canterbury, Wes Logan, Bill Lowen. My gosh, you've got plenty of guys who can help you work out any rough spots there. All right, Mike, before we started here, I asked you to maybe pick out a bait or two because this year on Roundtable, I've added an element I'm calling show and tell. And I tell folks, I tell my guests like yourself, I said, bring me a bait that's just something you've always got tied on, or bring me a bait that you think is going to be a player in the next tournament, or, and nobody's done this yet, bring me a bait that has some, real sentimental value for you. What did you choose for us today?
Well, I don't know if these baits will come into play on the next tournament, even though Logan might be considered one of my home lakes. It's about an hour away. I haven't had the opportunity to spend a lot of time there, but I will say the two baits that I brought are ones that I don't care what lake we go to, they're going to be tied on. And one of them I probably will have, well, both of them I will have multiple versions tied on.
Okay, wow.
And even if they don't come out of the boat, they're in my rod locker and they make me feel comfortable. And those would be, one would be a bladed jig. Not always in this color, but a bladed jig in some form, I'm going to have tied on at every tournament. And when I say I'm going to maybe have 3 of them tied on, I'm probably going to have, a shad color, probably a green, and then, maybe a bluegill or whatever the forage color is there. So I oftentimes have 3 of them tied on. And
now the one you showed me there, it did not have a trailer that I saw.
This did not have a trailer. So normally what I do is my trailer selection will be based on what the conditions are. Like most guys, if I'm trying to get the bait a little deeper or have it hunt a little more, I will use more of a straight-tailed trailer. If I'm trying to get the bait to hold up a little bit, slow it down, give it not so much hunting action, a little more action on the bait, then I will use a boot tail trailer. And often I find myself probably more and more using the boot tail trailer is where I seem to go a lot with. And that might be because I like to fish shallow, but I like to throw a 1/2 ounce. For some reason, the 3/8 ounce just doesn't feel right to me. So oftentimes I'll even fish a 1/2 ounce in shallower water. So I need to keep that bait up a little bit. So I'll fish a boot tail on there.
I've heard that 1/2 ounce, 3/8 ounce thing from a number of anglers, especially if you're talking about the Z-Man jackhammer. They talk about it that way. Yeah. And I'm not sure, because I throw a lot of 3/8 here in Florida where it is so shallow, but I totally get what you're saying about this is a 12-month out of the year bait. It's amazing that, 20 years ago or so, that bait style didn't even exist. And now so many guys have got it tied on whenever they launch their boat. What percentage of your arsenal would you say is a bladed jig?
I would say to going into any tournament, it's probably going to be like 50%. I mean, that's what I'm going to go to first. I'm going to do the bladed jig thing first, or comfort baits. I'm going to throw all my comfort baits first and try to find fish that will bite the bladed jig. If I can find fish that'll bite the bladed jig, I mean, throughout the day, if I'm practicing and I had 3 or 4 hours and really haven't caught much, and then during practice you get 5 or 6 bites and it's all on the bladed jig, I will have a conscious thought like, awesome. Like, that's all I needed to know. I'm not putting it down. And I will die with it. I think that's probably one of my stubborn points is that, Ken, I've been blessed in life. My wife and I have been lucky. We grew a great business. We were able to exit that business. I'm out there to have fun and fish the way I want to fish. And if it means a good finish or means a check cash, I'm happy. If it doesn't turn out the way I want, which seems to be more the case as of recently, I'm still happy because I'm just out there fishing and having fun and doing it the way that I want to do it. And if they'll bite my bladed jig, then I'll catch one. And if they don't, then I'm not going to catch one. I'm a bit like my best friend David Fritz, who won't put his crankbait down. Like I've just become that guy where I'm just going to throw what I want to throw, and if they bite it, great, and if they don't, then somebody else can win. We
miss David Fritz on the trail, and you'll enjoy this, Mike. Justin Brouillard, who does a fabulous job writing our tournament preview stories, he was reaching out to me. He said, "Hey, who should I get for this Logan Martin preview?" I said, "Get Fritz. He won a classic out there."
Absolutely.
So hopefully we're going to have a lot of good commentary from David Fritz in that story coming up here in just another day or so. But okay, so bladed jig, big part of your game. Yeah. A lot of variance in the rod styles that guys like. Some guys want a softer parabolic bend or even a glass rod. And some guys go with more traditional kind of medium heavy thing. What's your approach, Mike?
I do not go with the glass rod. I have tried it a couple times. I use glass on my crankbaits, but the glass rod, to me, I struggle with trying to make accurate casts with it. When I'm out there throwing a big crankbait around, you're out there in open water. The glass rod, you can really load that thing up. When you're trying to throw a chatterbait around a piece of wood or a piece of grass, and as you know, a chatterbait will go and find something to get hung up on.
Well,
it's one of my favorite baits, but these things will hunt something to get hung up on. So I find that in order to make very accurate cast, I need a rod that's got just a little bit more that I can control where I'm throwing it. So I have landed on a 7'3" medium heavy, but a moderately fast tip. So it's not a fast, it's not a light, it's moderate. And I find that allows me to still cast, allows me to get the hook set that I need, but also allows me to, the moderately fast allows me to play the fish without them shaking the bait. Because I think a lot of guys make the mistake of using too stiff of a rod, and yes, they might get a good hook set or they get that, but the fish, this is a heavy enough bait, and there's enough bait out of the fish's mouth that they can shake this thing a lot. And you hear a lot of guys losing fish on chatterbaits, and I think a lot of times it's because their rod is too stiff.
How about line? I'm assuming you're mostly throwing fluorocarbon, but what
mostly
sizes?
Fluorocarbon. I think you can get away with throwing 20-pound test line, obviously, because you're moving the bait. I mean, you could probably throw it on braid if you really wanted to, but I tend to either be, that 16-pound, because I'm a sunline guy, so they don't do a 15-pound. Theirs is 14, and then it jumps up to 16. So I tend to be more that 16-pound, depending on if I'm fishing around things where I think the fish are going to pull me into wood or around a dock. Then I might jump up to 20 or 22. But most of the time, day in and day out, I find 16 works just fine.
Now, I think of it, well, I'm in Florida, so it's not really fair. You've lived in Florida plenty, so you know what I'm talking about. But when I throw a chatterbait, I'm invariably throwing it in pretty shallow water. How deep will you go with a chatterbait?
Probably, I'll go maybe 8 foot is probably about as deep as I go. Once it gets any deeper than that, I think it changes the way you have to fish it, and I don't really like slowing it down that much. The one thing I have not played with yet, which I plan to play with, I haven't played with any like the 3/4 ounce ones as much, or any of the large blade. I know they have a arsenal of deeper water baits, but I have not. Once I get out of that 8 foot zone, I might go to more of a crankbait or something that I can also wind and cover some water on, but something that has contact with the bottom. I feel like that's a key thing to me. I feel like I need to be hitting something, or I need to be feeling the bottom or something. And once you start getting beyond that 8 foot, it's increasingly more difficult to keep that chatterbait on the bottom or near the bottom and be winding it. Now, in the fall time, if you're up on Champlain, you just throw it out there and 20 foot of water and just reel the thing back, and then smallmouth will come up and get it. That's a different. So there's scenarios for everything. But most of the time, if I'm power fishing, I feel like I want that bait around a piece of cover or touching it or close to the bottom. And outside of that 8 foot zone, I just don't feel comfortable. I think guys do it. I just don't feel comfortable with it.
Mike, what you'll find is when I'm asking you questions or asking anybody questions about their techniques, I'm really just trying to steal a few tips that will help me personally. That's the entire reason I do round table.
I don't think, is there any 8 foot of water in Florida, Ken? I don't think there is.
Hey, if I can't hit it with my punching rod, I go to the bank immediately.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I operate. If my talons don't reach, I know I'm in no man's land.
Yeah.
I think you told me you brought more than one bait.
I did. I brought another one. I think I would arguably say if guys don't have this next one tied on, it's in their boat somewhere.
And this is Logan Martin or just anywhere?
Just in general. I think in general across the world. And that would be the good old fashioned stick bait. I would go out on a limb and say that probably every angler has one. This is a color. This happens to be a Senko. And this is the color that I throw the most, which is watermelon green pumpkin. That's just the one that I have the most confidence in. But I think there's very few anglers that don't have a stick worm somewhere in their boat. I might go searching through. It may not be a Senko, but some kind of a stick bait in their boat.
Oh, I'm with you. If they don't have a stick worm and a bladed jig of some kind, you got to wonder if they've ever seen a bass.
Exactly.
Well, now look at you. You just picked two baits that have hit the market in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And have changed the way people fish.
Yeah.
And before we go into, I want to get into how you fish the stick worm.
Yeah.
But is the urchin going to be another bait like that? What do you think?
I think the urchin, I think you and I have had personal conversations about this, Ken. I think the urchin is a cool bait. I think it's interesting. I think it'll evolve because I think we're still all trying to figure out exactly how to fish it, exactly how to rig it. So it will be interesting to see exactly what happens with this bait. And I'm going to have it tied on at the next event. I've got a pile of them like everybody else. I've gone and got them. I'm going to try a couple of different ways to rig them. I'm actually going to go down on my lake that I have here, and I'm going to mess around with them a little bit before we go. But I think right now what's making the urchin so popular and why it's catching so many fish is because everybody's fishing with it. I think if everybody fished with a bladed jig and we didn't have nothing else to fish with, the bladed jig would be impossible to get, or everybody would be winning the tournament with the bladed jig. And I just think that's the way fishing is. All of us anglers are constantly looking for the next greatest thing or the next thing that will catch us a fish that the other guy can't fish. There's very few secrets anymore on the water. And we all have to admit that most generally we're fishing behind somebody. I don't care if you pull into a row of docks, Ken, and you're like, wow, nobody's here. Somebody has fished that an hour earlier, 5 minutes ago. Who knows? Maybe 20 guys have already fished it. So I think the urchin has really been one of these things where people are like, wow, there's a bait that fish haven't seen. I can go behind a guy and fish a dock with this and catch him. And that's probably true. How long that continues to work will be something else. I do think, unlike the bladed jig, the urchin has a feeling that it could be a short-term fad. I don't know that to be true, and I'm not picking on that bait or any of the companies that make them. The bladed jig or like a plastic worm, I don't know. It's hard to see those items as ever not producing bites or them not being in an angler's box. I'll be interested in 3 years. Guys will still have the stick bait and the bladed jig in their boat. I will be curious if everybody has an urchin in their boat in 3 years.
I think that's a great observation. I think they will. I think that the urchin will be a hot fad for another year or two.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting it to hang around on some level. I think we'll learn more about it. We'll find applications for it. And 20 years from now, I may not be here, but I expect the urchin still will be.
I think it will be fun too. And in 20 years, when the kids coming up are looking at some of the silly baits that we've thrown, I've gone into antique stores and you see old baits and you're like, boy, would a bass even bite that thing? The urchin is going to be that in like 30 years at the antique stores hanging up, where people were like, you guys threw those things in the water to catch fish? And we were like, yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. But I think you're right, Ken. They're working so well right now. It would be hard to believe that a bait like that could all of a sudden just drop off and go away for how good it's working.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that even if the fad dies pretty hard, there will soon be another generation of fish come along that have never seen it and that will still eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's backtrack a little bit, because you brought that Senko out for a reason.
Yeah.
Tell us about, well, first of all, talk to us about your favorite way to rig a Senko. You can go self-weedless, you can go wacky. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to go. What are some of your favorites?
So I will usually, I will have 3 of the bladed jigs usually tied on, and I will usually have sometimes, well, at least 1, but sometimes as many as 4 versions of the Senko tied on. And oftentimes it'll be the same color, but I will do a wacky rig almost always. I have at least a wacky rig somewhere in the boat. I will have Texas rig, weightless, 16th, and an 8th. Those seem to be my go-tos. 8th is probably the one that I fish the most. The reason why that is because I can fish it a little faster and cover water, get more cast in. I understand that there's a time for a weightless when it works really great. If I've got like a bottom that's very slimy and the 8th is just digging too much into the bottom and getting slimed, then a weightless will work. The reason why I try to get away from a weightless is just for time management. It just takes forever to let that bait get to where you want it to go. And it's just like, I'm trying to like I only got 8 hours. I got to catch some fish. Like once I get a limit in the boat or have some fish, or if I'm really catching fish, I can stick with a weightless all day. But initially to start, I'm going to go with probably an 8th or something that I can fish it a little bit quicker to at least get some bites.
Now on the weightless ones, especially the weightless wacky, are you throwing that on spinning gear? I'm
throwing that on spinning gear. Yeah. It will depend on where we are and what I'm fishing around and what pound leader. I'll have anywhere from a 7-pound all the way to a 15-pound leader. But most of the time, I'm probably more like in a 10-pound leader size.
Now,
and I find that works good.
I got to believe everybody at Logan Martin is going to have a wacky stick worm on a spinning rod to skip under those docks.
I would say so. It's going to be, they're going to have that tied on or some kind of a jig to get underneath those docks. And the urchin bait. I guarantee they're going to be trying to throw that urchin underneath there too, as I will definitely try. But wacky is going to be, you're going to catch a bunch of fish on it. And the cool thing about a wacky is I feel like the stick bait in general, little fish bite it, big fish bite it. I've caught some of my biggest fish I've caught on a Senko. So it's not just a small fish bait. Pressured fish will bite it. Active fish will bite it. Yeah. I just feel like there's very few baits that if there is a fish underneath that dock or underneath that log or underneath that lily pad, they may watch that bladed jig swim by. But I don't think there's many bass that are going to let a Texas rig, Senko, or a wacky rig come by them without biting it. It works.
That was exactly my prejudice against the urchin. Is I'm thinking, why would I throw an urchin when I know if I pitch a Senko over there, that fish is still going to eat that? But then I've had people tell me that they have watched fish ignore the stick worm and then attack the urchin. So
Yeah.
Now I'm in the market for urchins. And by the way, we had a conversation the other day about storage for urchins.
Yes.
I went out and I think I bought the same thing that you told me that Catherine had ordered for you.
Oh, you did? Yeah. The one.
I'm not sure it's the same one, but it sits in the bottom of a 3700 and it's got
it's got the pull. Yes, sir. Yeah. And it's made by a gentleman on Etsy, I believe, is making them.
That's where I got it. Yeah. I'm not sure I got the same one, but I bet I did. It looked the best to me by far.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it looks the best. I think he's calling it a seabed or something, which is interesting because urchins, so yeah. So it'll be, I just have ordered some stuff to see what's going to work. I think everybody is trying to figure out what's going to work. But yes, that's the one that I ordered. I had the same thought process that you did, Ken, was I felt up until maybe 2 weeks ago that I was not going to buy those urchin baits. I was like, I'm not buying them. I'm not going to do it. Two things changed my mind. One, John Cox came and fished on my lake that I have on the property, and I watched him catch a boatload of fish on an urchin. And I was like, okay, I like enough. And
what is John doing not throwing a general? Come on.
He did throw some other baits. I don't think I saw him throw the general, but he threw some other prototype baits that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about. And he did catch one great big one on a frog, which was a lot of fun. But he rigged me up an urchin and gave me one. And I think more I thought about it, I think I had the same thought process that you did, Ken. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my wacky rig underneath there. They're going to bite it just like the urchin. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, there might be 30 other guys that go in front of you that they have seen the wacky rig. Now, you're going to know better. I don't know how many years has the wacky rig stickworm been a thing? A long time, right?
Well, the Senko's been out since about 96.
Right.
But I think it took a while for people to realize or understand the best ways to fish it, which I expect is the same thing that we're going to see with the urchin. But that wacky stickworm has probably only been a thing for about 20, 25 years.
Yeah, and the fish have all seen it, right? Underneath those docks, they've probably seen it. So maybe they don't bite it, right?
Maybe they don't.
I got to think about that, and I was like, well, probably for these next couple tournaments, I should probably throw the urchin because there's a good chance that maybe they haven't seen that. Now, in a couple years, those fish are going to have seen the urchin 1,000 times and we'll be on the fence. Maybe then the stickworm will come back out, right? Because I'll be like, oh, the last 3 boats have thrown the urchin and I'm going to throw the stickworm. And I'll be honest, if I'm probably going to throw the stickworm as much as the urchin because I have a sneaking suspicion that a majority of the field is going to be throwing an urchin, which means I'm not going to go behind guys on docks throwing an urchin too.
Mike, you and I need to go in business. We need to go in business making something that is essentially a Nerf brick.
Yeah.
Because that's the next thing, and you and I can be on top of it.
So I don't. Yeah. So I'm gonna. I got on the urchin thing, and I went out and bought a bunch of them. I'm still trying to figure out how to rig them. I watched a podcast last night where a gentleman was rigging one, and I think so far that particular method that he's using got my attention the most. And I'm going to go out in my garage here after we get off here and try to rig one up and see if I can figure out how he's doing it. But
well, hey, you've been very generous with your time today, Mike. Thank you so much for that. I'm not going to hold you up from your tackle room and figuring out the best way to rig the urchin. This has been wonderful. I hope it's been enlightening for a lot of people who have been waiting to meet Mike Comeau and to have a better understanding of his relationship with NPFL. I don't think you need it, but I'm going to wish you luck at Logan Martin.
I appreciate you, Ken. Thank you for having me.
And I will see you out there. And folks, that's been Mike Comeau. Mike and his wife, Catherine, majority owners of the NPFL. Mike has been competing in the NPFL since the very first tournament in 2021. And he's going to be fishing pretty close to home next week at Logan Martin. So, Mike, thanks again.
Thank you, Ken. Pretty appreciate you.
That's going to do it for this edition of Roundtable. You will not see me here again for another month when we're at Stop 5 on the St. Lawrence River out of Messina, New York. Meanwhile, I want to thank you, truly, for joining us and for supporting the NPFL. And don't forget, there's a new way to support the league, to improve your fishing, and even to save some money on fishing gear. We all want to do that. And that is to join the NPFL Legion. For just $29.99 a year, You're going to get access to exclusive content. You're going to get discounts on NPFL apparel and branded products. And you're going to get a one-time 20% discount on a tackle warehouse purchase of $100 or more. Means if you spend over $150, you've already covered your Legion membership. Remember, Stop 4 of the 2026 season here at Logan Martin Lake, hosted by the city of Oxford, Alabama, begins Thursday, June 25th. Our live weigh-ins are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right here on the NPFL website or on YouTube, beginning at 2:30 p.m. Central. That's 3:30 Eastern with Big Al McCulloch. Big Al always brings the boom. He is the best. Speaking of the best, our live on the water coverage is day 2 and day 3. That's Friday and Saturday with Luke Duncan and Fat Cat Newton. That starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 1 p.m. Central. If you're in the Eastern time zone, it's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you're in one of the other time zones, do the math. If you're in the area, come on out to the weigh-ins at Lincoln's Landing. Meet the pros, talk fishing, get some autographs, hang out with me. I'd love to see you there. My name is Ken Duke. I'll be back in about a month with more Roundtable, and I will catch you then.